Hey guys, tonight we travel somewhere frosty and ridiculous, straight into a saga of thunder gods, missing weapons, and bridal gowns no one asked for. You're standing in the golden halls of Asgard, surrounded by gods with questionable judgment and even worse conflict resolution skills. The torches flicker, the stars outside shimmer like frost-bitten sparks, and you, dear listener, are about to become Thor. Unfortunately, you're also about to become very irritated, because tonight you wake up and something's off. There's a strange chill in the air, not just the usual post-mead stupor, but the something's missing kind. You reach for your hammer, Mjölnir, your loyal, bone-rattling, lightning-flinging, giant-smashing bestie, and there's nothing but cool stone. Your hand flaps uselessly in the empty space where Mjölnir usually glows with smug, divine energy. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're tuning in from somewhere especially sleepy, drop your location and local time in the comments. Always fun to see who's listening at 3 a.m. next to a purring cat or under a blanket fort. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge out into the morning, mist of Asgard's great courtyard, still in your fur-lined sleep tunic, hair doing that weird puff thing it does when you forget to braid it at night. Birds scatter as you stomp past. Something in the back of your brain tries to calculate. When did you last have the hammer? Did you misplace it? Surely not. Thor doesn't misplace Mjölnir. That would be like a dentist forgetting their drill, or a raccoon losing its sense of mischief. The sun barely crests over the high golden towers, painting everything with sleepy warmth. But you're not warm. You're furious. You suspect foul play. You pass Heimdall at the Bifrost gate. He just gives you a knowing look, the kind that says, "I saw it happen, but I'm not telling you because it's funnier this way." Now, you're storming through the palace halls. Everything smells like roasted boar and pine sap. Gods and goddesses blink groggily as you pass. Some nod, some raise an eyebrow. No one says anything. No one dares say anything, except, of course, one person. Loki. You find him lounging in the Hall of Echoes, sipping something that smells like strawberries and bad decisions. His feet are up on a decorative wolf skull, and there's that grin, half fox, half fire, and 100% guilty. "Good morning," he says without looking up. "You're missing something, aren't you? You scowl so hard your eyebrows might develop thunderclouds." "Mjölnir is gone," you growl, each syllable echoing like rolling thunder. Loki puts down his cup very slowly. "Gone, you say? That's a mystery. Like, where does the last sock in the wash go? Or how Odin always knows when we've been drinking his reserve mead? You're not in the mood. Fix it." Loki grins. "Oh, I didn't take it, but I suppose I could poke around, ask a few birds, threaten a squirrel or two. You'll owe me, though. Something shiny or edible. You hate how often you have to rely on this slippery chaos gremlin. But this is your hammer, your sacred, impossible to lift, only I can hold it hammer. The one that always comes back when you throw it, except now it hasn't." Loki stands, stretches like a smug cat, and tugs out a shimmering feather cloak from nowhere. "I'll check the usual spots. You know, Jotunheim, Svartalfheim, that weird cave where Freyja keeps losing his pants." He winks and takes off in a blur of feathers and wind. And you, left behind in your socks and unbrushed beard, are stuck waiting. There's nothing more infuriating than depending on Loki and waiting. So you pace. You eat a cold turkey leg. You yell at a goose that looks at you funny. Classic stress responses. Meanwhile, up in the high clouds, Loki zips between realms, whispering into foxholes and bribing tree spirits. He knows the way of things. He knows exactly who to ask. And he knows who probably has your hammer. Historians still argue whether Loki's informants were crows, trolls, or something more abstract, like fate itself. Eventually, after what feels like an eternity of pacing and throwing rocks at nothing, Loki returns. His boots are singed, and there's glitter in his eyebrows. I found it, he says dramatically. You're not going to like this. You fold your arms. Jotunheim, he continues. King Thrym. Very tall, very rude. He's got Mjölnir, buried 8 miles beneath the ground where no one can touch it. You growl. Then I'll rip it out of the ground and his skull while I'm at it. Ah, see, here's the twist. Loki raises a finger. Thrym says you can have it back if you let him marry Freyja. You blink. Then you blink again. Freyja, the goddess of love, beauty, war, and that terrifying necklace she refuses to take off. Yes, that Freyja. You try to imagine the meeting where Thrym thought this was a good plan. Steal the most powerful weapon in the universe. Demand a date. It's not exactly a brilliant plan, but you also know the giants are not known for their brilliance or hygiene. The good news, your hammer isn't destroyed. The bad news, Freyja is not going to be thrilled, and neither are you. But for now, all you can do is nod, grind your teeth, and prepare for the next layer of this ridiculous godly onion. There's always another layer, and probably a terrible idea underneath it. You march down the echoing corridors of Asgard like a thundercloud in sandals. Every step smacks the stone floor like a warning. Servants clear the way. Valkyries peek around corners, then pretend they weren't watching. You are Thor, god of thunder, and someone has dared to mess with your stuff. But let's be real. This isn't the first time Loki has roped you into something weird, and it won't be the last. You find him again in the courtyard, this time nibbling what might be a honeyed mushroom tart, like he's just gotten back from brunch, not an interdimensional spying mission. He waves casually as you approach, still wearing that insufferable smile. So, you say, arms folded. You're sure Thrym has the hammer? Loki licks his fingers. Oh yes, he was very smug about it. Did that thing where he talks slowly and laughs at his own jokes. Giants, you know. You resist the urge to punch something. Why Freyja, you ask? Loki shrugs. Well, she is the most desirable goddess in all the realms. According to Thrym, she's also the only one he hasn't been punched by yet. He probably thinks marrying her gets him some divine political clout. You sigh. Does she know? Loki smirks. Not yet. You groan. And your plan is? Tell Freyja, she screams at us. Breaks a few chairs, maybe turns a squirrel into stone. Then we brainstorm a solution that'll almost get us killed. You rub your eyes. It's not even noon, and already this day has gone off the rails. Somewhere, Odin is probably watching from his throne, sipping his deep philosophical mead, muttering, "Let the boy learn." You and Loki head towards Sessrumnir, Freyja's majestic hall, a place filled with warmth, woven tapestries, and at least 6 cats lounging in sunbeams. The scent of incense and something floral lingers in the air. You almost feel bad barging in. Almost. Freyja is seated on a raised platform, twining golden thread through a loom that shimmers like sunlight on water. She looks up, her eyes narrowing the instant she sees Loki. "Oh no," she says flatly. "What do you want?" "I come bearing news," Loki replies, attempting a bow. "And a favour, possibly a wedding proposal." She drops the loom shuttle. "Whose?" Loki grins. "Yours. From a charming frost giant who stole Thor's hammer and is holding it hostage under 8 miles of frozen bedrock until you say, 'I do.'" You watch her face carefully. There's a brief pause. Then the room explodes. A tapestry goes up in flames from sheer divine rage. The cats hiss and scatter. Freyja rises with the terrifying grace of a battle-hardened goddess. "You want me to marry a giant so Thor can get his toy back?" Loki winces. To be fair, it's more of a sacred weapon. She cuts him off with a glare that could curdle goat's milk. "Absolutely not. I'm not a bargaining chip. You think I'd tie myself to some frostbitten oaf just because he can't keep track of his hammer?" "Technically," you mutter. "It was stolen." She points a jeweled finger at you. "Maybe keep better track of your things, Thunderboy." Historians still argue whether Freyja actually flung Loki out the window at this point, or merely threatened to. Ancient scrolls conflict on the finer points, but most agree there was a loud noise, and at least one cat passed out. Eventually, the three of you reconvene with the other gods in a hasty emergency meeting in the central hall. Odin is absent. He's off brooding somewhere mystical, but everyone else is gathered. Frigg, Balder, Idun, even Heimdall, who probably already knows how badly this will go. Everyone talks at once. Can't we just storm Jotunheim? They'll see us coming a mile away. What if we trade something else? A goat? 2 goats? We already traded our golden apples last week. Didn't work out. What if we give them Loki? Tempting, but no. You sit in the middle of the chaos, staring into the crackling hearthfire. And then Loki, because of course it's Loki, says the sentence that changes everything. Well, what if Thor marries Thrym instead? The hall goes quiet. Absolutely silent. You look up, slowly. What? Think about it, Loki says, already enjoying himself far too much. You dress as Freyja, veil and all. We send you off to Jotunheim, and when Thrym brings out the hammer as part of the wedding gifts, you grab it and smash everything in sight. You open your mouth, close it, open it again. You want me to wear a wedding dress? Loki nods. Yes, a big one, with lace and flowers. It'll be adorable. You glance around the room, expecting someone to veto this immediately, but instead you see thoughtful nods. It could work, says Frigg. The giants aren't exactly observant. They're very literal, Idun adds. If you're veiled, they'll assume you're Freyja. Balder chimes in. Plus, it would be hilarious. You lean back, already regretting every life choice that brought you here. But, Loki says, trying to sound serious, you'll have to really commit. No talking like yourself. No storming off halfway. No hitting people until you have the hammer. You glare. You're enjoying this too much. He smiles. Oh, absolutely. And so, reluctantly, you agree. Because Mjölnir isn't just a weapon. It's your identity, your power, your thing. And if you have to wear a veil and pretend to be a blushing bride to get it back, so be it. The gods begin planning at once. Runes are drawn. Magical fabrics summoned. There's talk of a fake dowry and ceremonial cakes. You are being measured for a gown while muttering about dignity and thunder rites. One of the dwarves offers to make you high heels. You decline. But deep down, you know this is the only way. It's ridiculous. It's humiliating. And it's definitely going to be the stuff of legends for all the wrong reasons. It's a strange feeling, sitting still while someone laces you into a wedding dress, especially when you're a towering thunder god who can bench press a mountain and once knocked out a sea serpent with a headbutt. The fabric itches. It's too tight around the arms. And the veil? It's lacy and sparkly. Loki's doing, no doubt. You could have just made me a cloak, you mutter, tugging at the hem. Oh no, Loki says, grinning from ear to pointy ear. If you're going to do this, you're going to sell it. Thrym's expecting Freyja, and Freyja doesn't wear cloaks. She dazzles. You glare at him through the veil. If I get glitter in my beard, I'm turning you into a goose. You'd be surprised how often I hear that. Around you, the gods prepare for the farcical masquerade. A fake wedding procession is arranged. Magical camels appear. Where did those come from? No one asks. Balder starts composing a solemn-sounding wedding march on a harp made from ice and regret. Even Heimdall helps, for reasons no one understands. You try walking in the dress. It swishes. It snags on a loose nail. You almost trip. Loki claps, delighted. Marvelous. Just like a blushing bride. You flex your biceps. I could crush a boulder in this thing. You probably will. Just wait until the reception. Now it's time for the journey. You and Loki set off toward Jotunheim in a cart drawn by enchanted goats. You're veiled, scowling, and seated stiffly. Loki sits beside you, dressed in a sleek formal tunic looking for all the world like your scheming maid of honor. The cold creeps in as the realm shifts around you. The snow grows deeper. The sky darkens. Jagged mountains rise like frozen teeth in the distance. Jotunheim, land of frost giants, bone-shaking winds, and some truly questionable culinary traditions. As you travel, Loki offers helpful tips. Remember to nod. Freyja is very noddy. Don't crush any goblets unless you're very sure it's time. Try not to speak. Your voice sounds like a thunderstorm gargling gravel. You grunt. I don't do subtle. You're not doing subtle. You're doing camp. You arrive at Thrym's stronghold just before twilight. It's not exactly a palace. More like an ancient fortress made from glaciers and leftover mammoth bones. Everything is oversized, from the frozen gateposts to the ceremonial axes nailed casually to the walls. A pair of giant guards peer down at you as the cart pulls up. Who goes there? One booms. Loki leaps up with exaggerated glee. We bring the bride, the glorious goddess Freyja in all her radiant beauty, as promised. There's a pause. The guards squint. You wave demurely with one gloved hand, trying not to punch anyone. Right, the guard mutters. She seems tall. Very tall, Loki agrees. It's the goddess glow. The gates creak open. Inside, it's like stepping into a cave, where someone threw a feast and forgot to clean up. Bones litter the corners. Icicles hang like chandeliers. Thrym himself stands at the far end of the hall, massive and wrapped in thick furs, his grin full of teeth and bad ideas. He claps as you approach. Ah, my beautiful bride. You suppress the urge to vomit. She does not speak before the feast, Loki says quickly. She's fasting, for spiritual reasons, and, anticipation. Thrym nods solemnly. Of course. How divine. Servants usher you toward a long, groaning table piled high with food. Giant haunches of meat, barrels of mead, platters of pickled fish. You haven't eaten since breakfast, and you're pretty sure you saw a squirrel take your lunch. So you dig in and immediately ruin everything. You devour 8 whole roast oxen in under 5 minutes, drain 3 barrels of mead, snap a turkey, leg in half with your teeth and suck out the marrow like it owes you money. Thrym watches, jaw slowly dropping. She's very hungry. Loki jumps in, eyes wide. She hasn't eaten in 8 days, so consumed with longing for you. It's all she talked about. The giants nod, half impressed, half terrified. One whispers, I think she bit the bone. You reach for a 4th ham, grunting behind your veil. That's love, Loki says with finality. As the feast winds down, Thrym leans in, his voice soft and greasy. And now, shall we remove the veil? Panic flares behind your ribs. But Loki is already waving dramatically. No, not yet. She must receive her wedding gift first. A sacred tradition, yes? Surely a bride as radiant as this deserves a proper offering. Thrym blinks. Ah, yes, of course. He gestures, and a trio of frost giants drag out a massive chest bound in iron. With a theatrical grunt, they pry it open, and there it is. Mjölnir, gleaming, radiant, tucked among layers of enchanted cloth like a holy relic wrapped in old laundry. You feel your pulse spike. So close. Just a few more seconds. Thrym steps forward, lifts the hammer reverently, and says, I give you this. You stand up. The veil slides away. Thrym freezes. 1 beat, 2. Then you snatch Mjölnir from his hands with a grin. Surprise. Mjölnir hums in your hand like a long-lost friend. That deep, thrumming magic surges up your arm, settling into your bones like an electric hug from the universe. The weight is perfect. The balance, flawless. You lift it once just to feel that satisfying whoomp as it slices through the air. Thrym, still holding your veil in one dumbstruck paw, blinks at you. Wait, you're not. You slam the hammer down on the banquet table. The entire thing explodes. Mead, meat, and chunks of splintered wood rain across the hall like confetti at the worst wedding ever. The giants rear back in confusion, their enormous chairs toppling behind them. Somewhere in the chaos, a roast boar sails majestically through the air and takes out a torch. Loki steps neatly behind a pillar, sipping mead. Showtime! You leap onto the table, spin Mjölnir once, and hurl it into the nearest wall of frost giants. The shockwave knocks over half of them. Plates and bones scatter like startled pigeons. Another group tries to stand. Bad move. You're already on them, hammer spinning, striking with enough force to shatter boulders and egos alike. Thrym finally snaps out of it. Guards! Too late. You charge straight at him, swinging Mjölnir in a wide arc that connects with his gut. He flies backward and slams into his own throne, which collapses in a heap of fur, wood, and embarrassment. A few giants try to regroup. One lifts a spear the size of a tree trunk. You catch it mid-air, crush it into splinters, and toss it aside. Anyone else, you ask? They hesitate. One makes a run for it. Another climbs into a stew pot and pulls the lid over himself. Very subtle. The air smells like burnt pine and panic. Loki walks over, picking fish bones out of his sleeves. Well, I think that went rather well. You wipe roast duck off your face. Define well. You got your hammer back. Thrym's down. The dress held up better than expected. You look down. The gown is scorched, slashed, and dripping gravy, but still recognizably bridal. Not bad, you admit. Historians still argue whether this event marks the first known use of cross-dressing in divine subterfuge, Loki muses. Personally, I think it shows excellent range. You grunt and sling Mjölnir over your shoulder. Let's get out of here before someone regains the nerve to throw a boulder. Together, you walk through the wreckage of what used to be a wedding reception, stepping over overturned goblets and slightly smoking fish platters. Outside, the cold night air bites your cheeks as you and Loki climb back into the goat-drawn cart. Loki picks up the reins with a theatrical sigh. You make a terrible bride, by the way. I make a terrifying bride, you correct. The goats snort, hooves crunching over the frost. The stars glitter overhead like spilled jewels, and the mountains fall away behind you. As you ride, you catch your reflection in a frozen pond. A war god in a wedding dress, smeared with feast grease, holding the most powerful weapon in existence. Not your proudest moment, not your worst either. Back in Asgard, word of your exploits has already started to spread. Valkyries laugh behind closed doors. Warriors raise toasts in your honor, some mockingly, some in awe. One very drunk elf insists on calling you Lady Lightning for the rest of eternity. When you arrive, Heimdall greets you with a single quivering eyebrow. Everything goes smoothly, he asks. You toss him a half-eaten goat leg. Define smoothly. Heimdall catches it without blinking. You left the veil on the throne. I'm not going back for it. Loki hops down beside you, stretching. We should do more weddings. Really spice things up around here. You give him a look. Try it, and I'll officiate with a hammer. You head straight for your personal armory, where you scrub down the hammer, change out of the dress, and swat away 2 ravens trying to perch on your shoulders like they're in a painting. You sit for a while, breathing, letting the day drain away. Then, a soft knock. It's Freyja. She strolls in, arms folded, and looks you up and down. So, you stole my wedding back. Technically, I prevented a war. She smirks. Technically, you wore my favorite veil into battle and didn't bring it back. You shrug. It caught fire. She narrows her eyes, then finally smiles. Well, at least you didn't marry the guy. Almost did. He tried to kiss my veil. Freyja wrinkles her nose. Gross. You both share a laugh, and for a moment, all the absurdity fades. But the thing is, this won't be the last time your hammer disappears. Giants are nothing if not persistent. Loki's schemes never really stop. And fate? Fate loves chaos. It's got a whole bag of it waiting for you, with runes that haven't even been carved yet. You don't know that yet, of course. Not the exact details. But something deep in your storm-charged blood tells you. The hammer may be yours again, for now. But this dance is far from over. You look out over the golden horizon of Asgard, the sun casting long shadows behind the towers. The breeze smells like firewood and sea salt. For now at least, all is calm. A raven calls in the distance. You close your eyes. Let them come. You think about locking Mjölnir to your arm with iron chains, maybe strapping it to your hip like a paranoid blacksmith. But even then, you know better. It's not about how it's taken. It's that it's taken. Again, and again, and again. You fall asleep that night with the hammer under your bed, like a child guarding their favorite toy. Just in case. A few weeks go by, the winds soften, the goats stop flinching every time someone mentions wedding. You try to settle back into routine, storm patrols, frost giant squabbles, the occasional skirmish over whose mead is strongest. But then something odd happens. Your hammer hums, not its usual hum, not the deep, sleepy buzz of "I'm near." This is different, twitchy, nervous. It starts vibrating at strange times, during meals, in the bath, once while you were peacefully watching a squirrel juggle acorns. Long story. You finally consult Odin. Well, technically, you barge into his hall, dump Mjölnir on his table, and scowl. "It's doing something," you growl. He leans over the hammer, stroking his beard. Runes shifting, power murmuring. Could be prophecy, could be indigestion. You glare. That's your answer? Odin shrugs one eye at you. Historians still argue whether Mjölnir's enchantments are purely mechanical or partially sentient. If the hammer's twitching, it might be reacting to something cosmic. You lean closer. Like what? He sips something suspicious from a goblet. Oh, time fractures, doom echoes, dream ghosts. You know, cosmic stuff. Helpful. You pick up the hammer and storm out. Again. But the truth gnaws at you. Mjölnir's acting weird. So you visit the dwarves who forged it, the legendary brothers Brokkr and Sindri. You haven't seen them in a century, and they haven't forgiven you for using their forge as a hot tub that one time. Still, they let you in, grudgingly. You show them the hammer, they poke it with tongs, tap it with chisels, mutter to it in Dwarvish. Finally Brokkr grunts, "It's not broken." Sindri peers at you, but it knows something. It's listening. You frown. Listening to what? The end, they say together. Right, back to Asgard. But before you can make it 3 steps past the Bifrost, Heimdall calls out, "We have a visitor." You look up. A lone figure approaches, wrapped in ragged furs, covered in frost, and limping from a long, brutal journey. It's Skirnir, servant to Freyja, lord of sunshine and mildly passive-aggressive crop blessings. Skirnir usually deals in polite errands and love poems. Today, he looks like he's wrestled a blizzard and lost. You help him inside, set him down near a hearth and hand him something warm. Loki joins, hovering like a curious wasp. Skirnir's voice shakes. The giants are building again, deep in the ironwood. Something huge. You feel your fingers tighten around the mug. Bigger than before? You ask. He nods. They're calling it Hrungnir's child. A beast, half rock, half rage. Loki whistles. Hrungnir, the one you shattered like a dinner plate. That's the one, Skirnir says. But this thing's worse. They say it breathes molten ice and sleeps inside a cliff. They're feeding. It's stolen starlight. Training it to hate thunder. You exchange a glance with Loki. That's oddly specific. And very on brand, Loki adds. Skirnir continues. They built a vault, deep under the roots of Yggdrasil, ward stones everywhere. And inside it, they've got something that might interest you. You already know. My hammer. Skirnir nods. You glance at your hip. Mjölnir is still there. Still humming. Still twitching. But how? Loki starts. You lift the hammer. It's colder now. Heavy in a different way. like it's been duplicated, or split, or mirrored. What if that twitching wasn't a warning? Loki muses. What if it was echoing? There's silence in the hall for a long moment. Then softly, Skirnir adds, "They call it Mjölnir's shadow. You hate how much you like the name. A fake? A copy? A corrupted clone forged from fragments of your essence? Historians still argue whether magical artifacts can be replicated without diluting their power or their personality. But the giants have done something dangerous. Again, you stand, crack your neck, and plant Mjölnir on the floor. It lets out a low bong that rattles the firewood. "I'm going," you say. Skirnir lifts a trembling hand. "You'll need help. The vault's guarded by riddles, wards. One of them asked me to name every breath I've ever taken." Loki perks up. "Riddles and secrets. You'll need me." You groan. "Besides," he adds, "who else is going to stop you from hitting a door that asks politely for a password?" Fair. You spend the next day preparing, mending your armor, polishing Mjölnir until it gleams like stormlight. Freyja stops by and offers a charm. Nothing fancy, just a thin bracelet of woven firelight and wit. "It'll whisper if someone lies, to you," she says. "That'll never shut up around Loki," you mutter. She winks. As night falls, you take one last look across the horizon of Asgard. The skies are clear, but you feel it. Deep under the world tree, something stirs. A creature born of rage and imitation. A vault full of stolen light. A shadow cast by your own power. You exhale. "Let's go," you tell Loki. You step onto the Bifrost. The wind shifts, and once again, your hammer hums. The Bifrost hums under your boots, pulsing with cosmic color as it carries you and Loki across the branches of reality. It's always disorienting, traveling this way, like being pulled through a kaleidoscope powered by lightning and questionable decisions. Loki doesn't help. He insists on narrating the journey with dramatic flair. "And so the thunder god descends once more," he proclaims, arms wide, "to face his own reflection, born of vengeance and possibly bad copyright laws." You give him a look. He shrugs. "What? If the giants are making knockoff hammers now, we should at least trademark yours." The Bifrost spits you out in the ironwood. You land in silence. No birds, no wind. Just the dense, oppressive weight of old magic and colder shadows. Trees here don't sway, they loom. Their bark is black and slick with frost. The air crackles with static, like the whole forest is holding its breath. You step forward. The path isn't a path so much as a suggestion. Roots twist across the ground like sleeping serpents. Branches claw at your cloak. Loki follows, unusually quiet. That alone tells you how serious things are. Hours pass, or maybe days. Time gets weird here. Eventually, you reach it. The vault, carved. Into the base of a mountain, hidden behind a curtain of frozen ivy, it looks less like a door and more like a dare. Smooth stone, ancient runes, and in the center, a carved relief of your hammer. Not a hammer. Your hammer. Right down to the little chip near the base from that time you threw it at a Draugr and missed. Loki whistles. They really captured your good side. You raise Mjölnir. The vault doesn't budge. Instead, a voice booms from the stone. "Name the weapon that breaks mountains but mends skies." Loki leans in. "You know, that could be 3 different things, or one very confused metaphor," you murmur. You answer, of course. "Mjölnir." The door responds with a low, grinding sound, but it doesn't open. Another voice. "Name the god who strikes but mourns, who destroys and defends." You frown. "Also me." Still, nothing. Loki raises a brow. "Try not saying your name for once." You sigh and say, "Thor." A rumble, a groan. The stone slides open. Inside, pitch black. You step forward, and the darkness shifts. Not like mist, not like shadow, like it's alive. And then it whispers. Not in words, in feelings. Regret, rage, shame. You grip your hammer tighter. The corridor twists, warps, bends around itself. 1 minute, you're walking forward. The next, you're upside down. Gravity is more of a guideline in here. At one point, you swear you walk through your own memory. The day you broke a mountain in half just to stop an avalanche from crushing a village. You see yourself, barely older than a teen, muscles too big for your armor, screaming as the world cracked open. Then, silence. You reach the inner chamber. And there it is, the shadow of Mjölnir. Not a replica, not quite. It looks like your hammer, but stretched, warped, twisted like it was made from molten night. Where yours is silver, this one is black. Where yours hums with life, this one pulses with hunger. Even looking at it makes your bones ache. It floats, suspended in the air, above a stone pedestal carved with more of those weird riddles. Around it, 4 frost giants kneel in prayer. Their bodies are covered in runes. One of them is humming the Odin Sleep Lullaby, completely out of tune. They don't look up, they don't have to. The hammer feels you and turns, just a fraction, just enough for you to know it sees you. Or whatever passes for sight in an artifact born of spite and frost magic. It begins to drift toward you, slowly, like it's thinking about it, like it's curious. Loki steps behind you. I don't think it should be doing that. You raise Mjölnir. It twitches, and that's when it hits you. It's not just mimicking yours, it's linked to it. Every movement you make, it responds, echoes, delays. It's like staring into a mirror underwater. Then, the whispers return. This time, louder. You let it go once, you'll let it go again. You shake your head. No, I came to end this. You are this, the whispers reply. The frost giants rise, their eyes glow with blue fire. One of them speaks in a language older than frost. The hammer of shadows pulses faster now, shaking with anticipation. Loki steps beside you, knife drawn. Plan? You breathe. Break the link. How? You don't answer. Instead, you charge. Mjölnir arcs in your hand, striking one of the giants full force. He collapses in a burst of shattered ice and blue sparks. The others roar and lunge. You duck, spin, hurl your hammer at the second one's chest, catching it on the rebound just in time to block a blade the size of a rowboat. Meanwhile, the other hammer watches. Then it moves, fast. It slams into the wall next to you, missing your head by inches. The sound it makes is wrong, like bones breaking backward, like thunder played in reverse. It doesn't come back to you. It returns to its pedestal, almost like it's testing you. Loki circles the edge of the room, hurling illusions and insults in equal measure. One giant chases an illusion of you into a wall. Another just gives up and sits down mid-fight, muttering something about job security. You make your way toward the shadow hammer. Closer now. You raise Mjölnir one last time and slam it into the pedestal. The explosion knocks everyone off their feet. The whispers scream. The frost giants collapse, and the shadow hammer cracks. A fracture blooms across its surface like lightning frozen in glass. It lets out a final shriek and vanishes in a burst of blue flame. Gone. The silence that follows is thick, final. You pick yourself up. Loki groans nearby, brushing ash off his eyebrows. So, we win, you nod. This time, he grins. You really hate duplicates, huh? You don't answer. But deep down you wonder, was that the only one? You leave the vault behind, its doors grinding closed behind you. The ironwood watches you go, quiet once more. Mjölnir hums in your hand, not nervously, not frantically, just content. For now, back in Asgard, you're a little singed, a little sore, and, let's be honest, a little smug. You've defeated a hammer copy made by spiteful frost giants, using stolen starlight and whispering ice. That's a Tuesday for you. The Allfather isn't around when you return. Off pondering cosmic riddles and misplacing prophecies, as Heimdall puts it. So you toss your cloak on a passing servant, kick off your boots, and sink into a throne-like chair in the great hall. Mjölnir rests quietly beside you, no twitching, no growling, no unexpected emotional outbursts. It's peaceful. Naturally, you don't trust it. Loki slinks into the room with a goblet and a grin. So, what now? Want to test the hammer against its shadow in a controlled laboratory? Environment with 0 witnesses and absolutely no rules. You raise a brow. You have a lab? Define lab. You don't pursue that line of questioning. Instead, you head to the observatory at the edge of the realm, one of those lesser-known spots that's technically sacred, but mostly used for stargazing and mead drinking. From there, the World Tree looms in full glory, and you can see across the 9 realms if the clouds behave. Tonight they don't. The sky is thick with violet haze and flickers of red lightning. Odd, even for Asgard. And then the wind changes. It smells different. Sulfur? Cinnamon? Burnt toast? You know that smell. Muspelheim, the fire realm. You clench your fists. Loki, appearing beside you again like a nosy house cat, sniffs the air and nods. They're late. I expected them after. Brunch. You don't even ask. What is surprising, however, is who shows up at the gates of Asgard the next morning. Not Surtur, the flame-bearded titan of destruction, but a small envoy of fire elves. Not the cute kind. These ones wear obsidian armor and carry blades that ripple like candlelight in a hurricane. Their leader, a tall, ember-eyed elf named Kerith, bows deeply. Thor Odinson, we come in peace and smoke, mostly smoke. You, narrow your eyes. Say what you came to say. He straightens. Something stirs in the molten heart of Muspelheim. Not flame, not dragon. Shadow, a blade born of ashes and thunder. We believe it's related to your hammer. You sigh. Deeply. Loki leans over. What is it with you and weapon-based clones? Should we check on your helmet? Ignoring him, you look Kerith in the eye. So this is... what? Mjölnir's cousin? A sword this time? Kerith nods. They call it Eldbrand, flameborn, and it moves like your hammer, except it doesn't come back when thrown. It multiplies. You blink. Excuse me? He continues. Every time it strikes the earth, it creates another version of itself. We tried to contain it. We failed. You glance at Loki. That's worse. Kerith nods gravely. It's seeking its other half. Other half, Loki whispers. You say nothing. But the realization hits hard. The shadow hammer wasn't a one-off. It was a prototype. And this Eldbrand, might be an upgrade. Built on the bones of your legend, forged from heat and mimicry. Historians still argue whether magical relics can form bonds across realms. But something in you knows this is personal. You gather your things. Where are you going? Loki asks. To stop the fire, you reply. He taps his chin. You really need a better catchphrase. You're back on the Bifrost before sunset, this time bound for Muspelheim. The colors are wrong. Everything's orange and black, like someone spilled magma on a battlefield and never cleaned it up. The heat slams into you like a wall, and even Mjölnir feels heavier here, like it's reluctant. Loki follows at a distance, already sweating through several layers of magic. Just so you know, he pants, I don't do Fire Realm combat. Unless I get hazard pay, you ignore him. The Fire Elves lead you across crumbling bridges and rivers of lava. The skies rumble with thunder. Your thunder, but twisted, offbeat, echoing like someone's playing your theme song backward. Then you see it. Eldbrand. It's not being held. It floats, blade first, above a canyon of broken obsidian. Flames lick its edge, but they don't consume it. The sword hums with the same note Mjölnir did before, but deeper, hungrier. Around it, shattered ruins. Dozens of other swords embedded in the ground like tombstones. Loki stops beside you. So, every time it lands, another one, you finish. Kerith whispers. We fear it will cover the realm in itself. Like glitter, Loki adds, but murdery. You step forward, and Eldbrand reacts. It rises as if sniffing the air, then tilts slightly. Aiming at your chest, you raise Mjölnir. Nothing. Then, it flies. Fast. You throw your hammer, intercepting it mid-air. The clash sounds like two planets arguing over dinner. Sparks, fire, and thunder erupt all at once. You barely manage to catch Mjölnir on the rebound. Eldbrand splits. Two blades now hover in its place. Loki curses. This is math now. He cries. You charge, Mjölnir ready. The battle is chaos. With each deflection, the sword multiplies. Soon, the air hums with flying copies. Each one identical, each one deadly. You realize what you must do. Stop hitting it. Instead, you try something. Else, you plant Mjölnir in the ground. It hums, the others slow. Then you kneel and whisper to it. Not a spell, but a memory. That first time it returned to you. That storm you calmed. The mountain you moved. The lives you saved. You remind it who it is. The storm hums back. Then, with a pulse of white-blue light, it sends out a shockwave, not to destroy, but to resonate, a frequency older than the gods. The ground trembles. Eldbrand's copies falter. Then one by one, they fall, empty, powerless, just metal again. The true sword drops last. You catch it by the hilt. It's still hot, still, watching. You hand it to Kerith. Bury it, deep. He nods. Loki finally stops fanning himself. Well, that was unnecessarily poetic. You don't reply. But you wonder, who made it? Because this wasn't a frost giant job. This was something else. Someone studying you and learning. Back in Asgard, things are surprisingly quiet. A little too quiet. You step off the Bifrost and wait for the usual fanfare. The trumpets, the cheering Einherjar, maybe even a bard with a half-finished ballad about the flaming sword incident. But this time, just Heimdall giving you a raised eyebrow and a subtle nod that says, "We really need to stop meeting like this." You sigh. Even Mjölnir seems tired, humming low like a thundercloud settling into sleep. But you don't head for the baths or the mead hall. You head straight for the royal archives. Loki appears before you reach the third staircase, naturally. So, what's the plan? Alphabetical search? Or just start opening dusty scrolls until something growls? Neither, you say. I want to find whoever's making these things. He blinks. You think someone's coordinating this? Like an evil weaponsmith with attachment issues. Maybe not evil, you reply, but definitely persistent. The royal archives are older than Asgard's golden towers. Carved into the roots of the realm itself, they contain everything. Runes etched into obsidian, whispered records stored in enchanted wind jars, even a few scrolls written in dragon spit. Charming stuff. You start with the section on enchanted, forging. Nothing useful. Next, cursed weapons. Again, mostly horror stories and warnings like, do not use while angry. Loki, meanwhile, busies himself charming open a particularly stubborn codex. It screams a little, but that's normal. Then, deep in the stacks you find it, a record so old it's not even a scroll. It's etched into bark, actual tree bark, with teeth marks. Loki reads over your shoulder. The Wormsmith. That's a new one. The record describes an ancient being, long thought to be a myth, who forged weapons from the bones of dying stars, said to have once crafted tools in response to other tools, not for war, for balance. So it's copying me? You murmur. No, Loki replies. It's answering you. That lands heavier than you expect, because that means each weapon, the shadow hammer, Eldbrand, they're not attacks, they're counterweights, balance to your chaos, responses to your thunder, You lean against a stone table. Why now? Loki shrugs. Historians still argue whether certain relics awaken only when their equal is born. Maybe it's your fault for being too shiny. You roll your eyes. Still, you can't ignore the pattern. Someone, or something, is watching. And worse, it's not just copying, it's evolving. Mjölnir purrs quietly. You flip the bark over, more teeth marks. But also a location. Not a map exactly, more like a riddle. Beneath the breath of Niflheim's chill, where light forgets. And time stands still, there stirs the forge of Echo's flame. Speak the spark, and name its name. You groan. Niflheim, Loki grins. Cold and cryptic. My favourite. Niflheim, realm of mist and ice, home to frost, fog and feelings of deep regret. You don't like it, but you go anyway. This time, you don't announce your departure. No one needs to know. You slip through the bifrost in silence, with Loki in tow and Mjölnir humming like a sleepy avalanche. Niflheim greets you the only way it knows how, with a slap of frigid air so sharp your eyebrows freeze in protest. The land is endless, grey. Ice plains stretch to the horizon. The wind is constant, angry, whispering. You move through it slowly. Every step cracks the frozen ground, sending little spiderweb fractures outward, like the world itself is too brittle for your weight. The silence here isn't empty. It presses. You feel watched, but not in a malicious way, more like measured. Loki shivers. If I freeze to death, you're carrying me home. You can teleport, you mutter. Yes, but I won't. The riddle leads you to a chasm, a massive fissure in the ice, deep enough that the bottom disappears into darkness. From it rises a faint red glow, a forge. Deep below, you lower yourself carefully. The walls are slick. The cold here doesn't bite, it burrows. By the time you reach the base, your breath is a cloud of diamonds and your hair has icicles the size of spears. But the glow is real. A forge sits in the center of the cavern, not blazing, not roaring, just pulsing, breathing. It's built from impossible metal, part stone, part star, part memory. You feel it before you see it. It recognizes you, or your hammer, or both. Then it speaks, not aloud, not with words, with questions. What is your purpose? To protect. What is your burden? To destroy when necessary. What is your truth? You hesitate, because that's the real problem, isn't it? You love your hammer, but not just for what it does, for what it means, for the way it makes things simple. You swing. Problems stop swinging back, and sometimes you hide behind that simplicity. You look into the forge. I am Thor, you whisper. God of thunder, breaker of worlds, defender of them too. And, lately, maybe a little tired of being answered with more weapons. The forge responds with a hum that isn't quite a laugh. It understands. And then, it changes. From the center, something rises. Not a new hammer, not a sword, not a weapon at all. A mirror, oval, smooth, forged of black ice and flickering light. When you look into it, you don't see your reflection. You see your echoes. Each weapon that's copied you. Each realm where balance tilted because of your presence. The mirror pulses. It shows a flicker of something next. A bow, forged in the smoke of Alfheim. White and gold, drawing light into shadow. Another answer. You stumble back. Someone isn't just copying your hammer. They're building an arsenal, not just to fight you, to balance you. And that means this isn't the end. It's the prelude. You stand in front of the mirror, still and breathless, not because of the cold, though Niflheim is doing its best to freeze your eyelashes off, but because of what you've seen, a bow of light and shadow, something new, something next. And the worst part, it doesn't look evil. It looks necessary. Loki hovers a few steps behind you. arms tucked into his sleeves, like a monk who's somehow also very judgmental. Well, I have so many opinions, but let's start with, that's extremely ominous. You don't answer, you're still watching the mirror as it flickers. Past, present, future, all weapons, all reflections of you. You think about the Forge's question again. What is your truth? You want to say it's heroism, justice, punching frost giants until they apologize. But really, it's weight, responsibility, a feeling in your gut that you'll never swing the hammer without consequence again, not after this. Loki finally breaks the silence. Let's leave before something else with an identity crisis rises from the floor. You nod. The mirror dims. The forge stills. The questions remain. As you climb out of the icy chasm, the wind howls louder, as if trying to shout one last warning. You ignore it. You have enough voices in your head already. Some ancient, some sarcastic, most of them yours. You return to Asgard once again. Heimdall doesn't ask this time. He just watches you with that all-seeing stare that suggests he knows. He probably saw the bow already, probably sees what you haven't yet. You're not alone anymore, not just in the hero business. You've become a pattern, a trigger. You shake the frost from your cloak and head toward the vault. Because there's one more thing you need to check. Not Mjölnir, not even Eldbrand, but the vault of unused stuff. Technically, it's called the Hall of Sealed Artifacts. But let's be honest, it's where Asgard dumps all the too dangerous to destroy magical junk no one wants to admit still exists. Weapons that whisper, shields that scream, and one eternally spinning axe that may or may not be made of sentient meteorites. The vault doors are heavy and bored. They creak open like they've just woken from a nap and are already annoyed. Inside, it's darker than usual, colder. You feel it immediately. An emptiness. Not just in the room, in the inventory. Something's missing. You pace the long aisle, lit only by softly glowing runes along the walls. There it was. Shelf 7, box 14. A relic known as the Svari shard. A dagger with no edge, only intent. You don't remember what it did exactly, but you remember the warning. Do not touch, or think about touching, or consider someone else touching. The box is open, empty. You turn sharply. Loki is nowhere to be seen. Of course. He reappears at the end of the hall. Relax. Not me, this time. You raise an eyebrow. He points to the far corner. There, crouched in the shadows, is a figure. Not tall, not armored, just still. When they look up, your breath catches. Not because of their face, because of their eyes. They're your eyes, or something trying very hard to mimic them. The figure rises, not with menace, but with an eerie familiarity. Their voice is soft. You left the door open, Loki mutters. Well, that's not terrifying at all. You step closer. Who are you? You ask. The figure tilts their head. A reflection, an echo, a study. I am counterbalance. You pause. You have a name. They smile. Names come after meaning. Loki whispers, you need better security. You examine the figure. They wear no armor, just threads of shadow and light, woven like storm clouds wrapped around a ghost. No weapon on them, but that means nothing now. They are a weapon. You can feel it. The same way you feel Mjölnir before. It strikes. They step forward, and you instinctively raise the hammer. They stop. I don't want to fight, they say. You lower it. Slowly. Then what do you want? You ask. Their gaze sharpens. To understand. To balance. Every time you tip the scales, someone else bears the weight. You frown. So you're calmer? With excellent tailoring? They blink. I am response, and you are reaction. That one stings a bit. Historians still argue whether this being, this echo, was a fluke of magic, a deliberate spell gone rogue, or the universe's passive-aggressive way of asking you to chill. But what's clear is this: it isn't here to destroy you. It's here to watch you, maybe to replace you. Why now, you ask? Because you've become too loud, it replies. Thunder without storm, justice without questions. You make ripples across realms, and something must absorb the shock. You clench your jaw. I save lives. Yes, they agree. And unmake others in balance. You step back. Loki finally joins you again. So, are we adopting this one? Or locking them up with the sentient axe? You don't answer, because deep down, you know the truth. This being wasn't created by accident. It's the result of every swing you made without thinking. Every time you used power instead of wisdom. Every time the hammer spoke louder than your voice. The echo turns away, walking deeper into the vault. Not running, just waiting. You watch them go, Mjölnir heavy in. Your hand, balance. It's such a small word, but it's starting to mean everything. You don't sleep that night. Not that you're a big sleeper anyway. What with the thunder in your blood and the dreams that tend to involve lava sharks and betrayal by ravens. But still, something about tonight leaves you particularly upright. You keep thinking about the echo, the way it didn't flinch from your hammer, the way it spoke, not as a threat, but like an accountant who's just discovered a very large, very messy overdraft in your cosmic karma account. Loki, being Loki, took the opportunity to host an impromptu lecture series titled When Weapons Develop Moral Complexity, a God's Guide to Existential Funk. You were the only attendee. He gave himself a standing ovation. You, however, just stared out over the edge of the rainbow bridge, watching the stars flicker like nervous fireflies. Because here's the problem with power, it echoes. And now, you have proof those echoes are growing teeth. You need answers, not just metaphors. And for that, you need someone who understands echoes better than anyone, which means paying a visit to the one being whose job it is to listen. No, not Odin. You're going to see the Norns. They live far beneath the roots of Yggdrasil, in a tangle of time and fate that makes Google Maps weep openly. Their realm isn't so much a place as a perpetual shrug. Threads everywhere, logic nowhere, and a strong smell of damp bark. Loki isn't thrilled. You know they hate you, he says, adjusting his cloak as you both descend along the twisting stair of fate. They hate everyone, you reply. That's what makes it special. When you finally arrive, the air feels tangled, like you've walked into 1,000 arguments mid-sentence. The Norns, 3 ancient weavers of fate, look up as one. They're not what mortals would call identical. But let's just say if you saw them in a crowd, you'd assume it was a themed triplet cosplay gone wrong. The eldest, Erd, squints at you. Ah, Hammerboy. You resist the urge to sigh. The middle sister, Verdandi, hums. Your thread's gotten loud again. The youngest, Skuld, doesn't speak. She just holds up a single strand of fate. It's golden, pulsing, wobbly, yours, and it's fraying slightly at the edges. You step forward. I need to know why the weapons are copying me. Who's behind it? Why it keeps escalating. Erd chuckles without humor. Because escalation is what you do, Thunderchild, Verdandi adds. When you solve every problem with a hammer, the world eventually builds bigger nails. That's not an answer, you say. Skuld finally speaks, voice soft as falling sand. It's the only answer you ever gave the universe. You made yourself a force of nature. And now, nature answers. Loki raises an eyebrow. Poetic, but very unhelpful. Skuld turns to him. You're next, trickster. He blinks. Well, that's not encouraging. You focus on the thread in Skuld's hand. It's glowing faintly. Now, pulsing with each breath you take, you ask quietly, can it be stopped? Erd shakes her head. Stopped? No, but guided, perhaps, if you accept that not every echo is your enemy. Verdandi nods. Some are lessons. Skuld gently hands you the strand. It feels warm, alive, slightly ticklish. Then teach me, you whisper. They smile, all three. The kind of smile that says, "We know you're about to ignore half of this." Still, they oblige. You sit, listen, and, slowly, the tapestry of echoes begins to unfold before you. Not just copies of your hammer, but refractions, alterations meant to balance not just power, but pattern. One echo appears to be rooted in Midgard, a mortal woman wielding a gauntlet of frost that absorbs energy. Another is a blade that exists in multiple timelines, manifesting differently depending on the wielder's intent. One even shows signs of laughter, its entire existence defined by comic timing and joyful chaos. You suspect Loki may have had a hand in that one. Each one, Erd explains, emerges in reaction to your imprint. And the stronger your story, the more resistance the weave creates. So this is my fault, you ask? No, says Verdandi, this is your legacy. Oof, that one hits harder than Mjölnir in a pottery shop. They lean in, speaking in eerie unison. You have two choices. You can keep reacting, hammer first, questions never, or you can find the source of the latest, echo and learn from it. Not stop it, learn, Skuld adds, and soon, because it's waking. You sit up. What is? She holds up another thread. Not gold, not glowing, black and flickering. Something old, older than your hammer, buried beneath Jotunheim for eons. A name slips from her lips, barely audible. Krafentan. You frown. That means what? Power tooth? Loki grins. No, worse, power mirror. You both stand. The Norns fade from view, already lost in new weaving, new whispers. But the echo of their warning remains with you. Jotunheim, then, cold. Hostile. Not a single decent pub. You steel yourself. Because if the Norns are right, then what you're about to face isn't just a weapon or a copy of Mjölnir. It's your inversion. Power made to reflect your greatest weaknesses. And it's awake. You don't even bother calling for backup. This one's yours. You arrive in Jotunheim with the grace of a bowling ball crashing through a snow globe. Cold bites instantly, more out of habit than hostility. Jotunheim is nothing if not consistent in its bad manners. Always howling wind, cracked ice plains, cliffs that look one missed step away from collapsing, and the distant sound of some beast sneezing in a way that suggests it's allergic to intruders. Loki lands beside you, brushing frost off his sleeves like he's just exited a disappointing sauna. You sure about this? He asks. Last time we were here, we left with 3 curses, a bite mark, and your hammer singing sea shanties for a week. You grunt. They were catchy. You march forward, because deep under this frozen wasteland, beneath the brittle teeth of the mountains, sleeps something that reflects your worst instincts. Krafentan. The name keeps scraping at the inside of your thoughts. Power mirror. It's not clever. It's not even poetic. It's just accurate, and worse, intentional. According to the Norns, this entity has existed longer than Mjölnir, older than Odin's first crown. A sentient weapon forged not to conquer, but to counter. An opposite made not of evil, but of equilibrium. Every time you tip the scales, it leans the other way. Every punch answered with stillness. Every swing matched by silence. Now it's awake. You don't need fate weavers to tell you why. You arrive at the site just as the storm begins to break. The mouth of the cave yawns open like a lazy serpent, dripping with icicles the size of longships. The rock walls shimmer faintly, traced with runes that pulse whenever you get too close. Old magic. Before language magic. The kind of protection spells that never needed vowels. Should I wait here? Loki asks. You glance at him. He rolls his eyes. Fine, I'll come. But if this thing tries to copy me, I'm leaving it a bad review. You both step into the darkness. The cave is not deep, but it is loud. Not in sound. There's no echo here, but something about the air presses against your skin. like it's humming a song too low for your ears to catch. You pass bones. Not giant bones, surprisingly. Small ones. Human? Dwarf? Hard to say. Each wrapped in vines of black crystal that pulse with a slow heartbeat. Then you see it. A chamber, circular, perfectly symmetrical, and at its center, not a hammer, not a sword, a sphere. Black, smooth, floating just inches off the ground. It reflects nothing, not even you, which, let's be honest, is a little insulting. You step closer. The temperature drops by entire regrets. Your breath clouds instantly. Loki hangs back, brows knitted in that should I be worried or just smug expression he's patented. The sphere pulses once, then again. Then it speaks, not with sound, but with memory. Your memory. You hear your own voice echoing through your thoughts. I'll fix this myself. I don't need anyone. Just let me hit it. Everything else will follow. Loki winces. You've been giving yourself pep talks again. The sphere begins to twist, folding in on itself like a blooming void, and then it becomes something else. A figure, roughly your height, no face, no details, just a silhouette of dark light. But it holds a weapon, not Mjölnir, something that wants to be Mjölnir. It floats above its hand, twitching in rhythm with your pulse. The weight of it is crushing, not physically, but philosophically, because it's your shadow, your aggression, your refusal to pause. The figure doesn't speak. It doesn't need to. You raise Mjölnir. The copy does too. You swing and miss, because it doesn't swing at all. It absorbs. Your strike vanishes into its mass like a torch into the sea. No clash, no explosion, just nothing. You reel back. Loki gasps, not at your miss, but at the floor. Where Mjölnir struck, the stone is clean, not cracked, not scorched, erased. You stare at your hammer. It hums nervously. The figure tilts its head. It's not trying to win, it's trying to cancel. Historians still argue whether Krafantan was truly a living entity, or just an ancient failsafe forged by a forgotten pantheon too afraid of unchecked gods. But what's clear in this moment is that it has one goal: to neutralize you. You adjust your stance. This might take creativity, you murmur. Loki chuckles, stepping forward. Finally, something in my wheelhouse. He draws a dagger made of something that isn't quite silver and isn't quite regret. Throws it. The blade passes through the copy and the shadow flickers. For a brief second, you see something inside it, a core. Small. Fragile looking, not evil. Just exact. You whisper, "Everything I've ever done, this thing knows how to counter." Loki shrugs. Maybe stop being so predictable. You glare, then lower your hammer. The figure mirrors you. You turn your back. It does not. Loki stares. "What are you doing?" Breaking the pattern, you say. You kneel. The shadow twitches. You speak. "I was wrong. It flickers. I've made mistakes." A crack appears down its center. I'm done swinging first. The weapon in its hand vanishes, and then, so does it. Gone. No explosion. No victory music. Just silence. You stay on one knee, breath fogging in the cold. Loki mutters, "Well, that's one way to win. Talk your enemy into therapy." You sigh. "No, I didn't win. I just unbalanced the equation." Because sometimes you realize, the only way to beat your worst self is to stop trying to win at all. The cave is still now. The sphere gone. The threat, for now, over. You rise and leave the silence behind. The walk back out of the cave feels longer than it should. Maybe it's the cold, or the weight of what just happened, or the creeping suspicion that you've just avoided an apocalypse by performing an emotional U-turn. Either way, your boots crunch over the snow with more hesitation than thunder usually allows. Loki hums beside you. Not a tune. Just humming. Which is more unnerving than comforting. You know, he finally says, that was the most un-Thor thing you've ever done. Thanks. I didn't say it was a compliment. You pause at the threshold of the cave. Look back. There's no sign the shadow ever existed. No mark. No ruins. Just an unremarkable chamber with very dramatic lighting. You whisper, "Do." You think it's gone for good. Loki shrugs. Nothing's ever gone for good. Except your reputation for subtlety, which I think you just barely revived. He pauses, suddenly serious. You did the one thing it couldn't predict. You stopped trying to be the loudest noise in the room. You grunt. I mean, he continues, you'll ruin it again tomorrow, obviously. But for tonight, I'm mildly impressed. You emerge from the cave into a pale winter sun and a wind that seems slightly less angry than before. For Jotunheim, that's practically a warm welcome. And yet, something still stirs in your mind. Because while you may have faced the echo, understood its shape and cause, the question remains, who woke it? These kinds of weapons, balancing forces, ancient mirror beasts, don't just flip the on switch themselves after centuries of napping. Someone wanted Krafentan active, that someone knew exactly how to shake your cage. You turn to Loki. Do you remember what Skuld said? About intent, he nods. The thread reacts to story, not just action. So if your myth grows too loud, the universe tries to write counterpoints. You frown. Someone's writing this. He raises an eyebrow. You think someone engineered your backlash. I think someone found the thread and yanked. And just like that, your next lead emerges. There's only one place in all the realms where threads of fate are stored and occasionally tampered with. The vault of Völvers, witches, seers, historians in the worst sense, editing stories to make prophecies more convenient. According to one surviving scroll, the vault is hidden in the northernmost edge of Vanaheim, under a lake shaped like an eye. Not guarded, not booby-trapped, just ignored, because it exists in a pocket of time that refuses to be noticed. Convenient. Suspiciously so. You and Loki step onto the Bifrost. This time, Heimdall doesn't even make a quip, just raises an eyebrow like, really? Vanaheim, on a weekday. You land at the shore of the Eye Lake. Vanaheim is lush, green and unsettlingly quiet. Everything smells of herbs and history. The air carries a sleepy hum, like the trees are dreaming, and you're just trespassing in their bedtime. The lake is mirror smooth, and indeed, shaped like a blinking eye. You take a deep breath, then walk directly into it. Because of course, the entrance would be in the water. The lake peels away like silk, not wet, not cold, just absent. You fall forward into a tunnel of light that flickers like candle flame under pressure. When your boots touch ground, you're in a library, but not a normal one. Books float. Scrolls orbit slowly like planetary rings. Shelves curl in on themselves. The scent is cloves and ink, and something faintly metallic, like memory on the edge of rust. Loki whistles. Still better organized than Odin's basement. At the center of it all stands a woman, or at least something shaped like one. Her robes shift like oil on water. Her face is half shadow, half smile, and her voice is pages turning themselves. You're early, she says. You blink. Early for what? She tilts her head. For your apology. You sigh. Let me guess, you're the head Völver. She curtsies, somehow sarcastically. You may call me Saga, but you won't remember that name tomorrow. Loki mutters. Charming. You step forward. Someone tampered with my fate thread, triggered a balancing weapon older than Asgard. I think they came here. Saga nods. They did. And they didn't have to tamper. They simply read. You frown. Read what? She raises a hand. A scroll floats to her palm, unrolls. And there, it is, your story from cradle to hammer. But the final chapter is blank. You've become unwritten, she says softly. A myth too tangled for prophecy. And that blankness, it attracts editors. You glance at Loki. He looks pale. Saga continues. The entity you faced, Krafentan, was awakened not by malice, but by curiosity. Someone wanted to see what would happen if you were forced into silence. You clench your fists. Who? She shrugs. A reader, a seer, a god, a trickster, a king. Take your pick. There are a dozen candidates with motive and access. Loki mutters, I swear if it's Baldur again. Saga smirks. Be glad. It wasn't the fates themselves. When they edit, they delete. You ask, can I fix the blank page? She looks you dead in the eyes. You can't write the future, Thor, but you can choose the next sentence. And then she vanishes. Because of course she does. Witches. Can't even finish a conversation. You and Loki return to the surface, minds buzzing. There's a saboteur out there. Someone with eyes on your thread. Not to destroy you, but to observe. What happens when a myth is left without a script? And that somehow is worse, because at least villains have agendas. But watchers, they just want to see you squirm. You leave the Well of Mimir with a headache the size of Midgard. Behind you, the disembodied head hums a melody that sounds suspiciously like a funeral march played backwards. Loki mutters something under his breath about storytellers with superiority complexes, and the two of you march along the roots of Yggdrasil in silence for a long while. Until you say, I want to break it. Break what? He asks. This story. The one I'm being shoved into. If someone's trying to rewrite me, they are. Then I want to end the sentence before they do. Loki tilts his head. You want to out-author the author? I want to remind them this isn't their myth. And just like that, a plan begins to bloom. Not a fight, not a quest, a performance. Because if someone's watching, if your every step is being interpreted, skewed, curated, then maybe the best move isn't to strike back. It's to confuse the reader. Loki's smile widens. A little narrative sabotage? Delightful. You shake your head. No sabotage, just something they can't predict. You're not going back to Asgard. Not yet. Instead, you begin gathering pieces of your myth that have never been seen together. Symbols of different versions of yourself. Clashing archetypes that don't belong in the same scene. You visit the Fireforge of Surtur and retrieve a shard of his eternal flame. You pluck a feather from the messenger hawk of Freyja, queen of love and cider. You even convince one very confused dwarven craftsman to melt down a piece of Mjölnir's original mold and recast it into something else. It's not about making a weapon. It's about making a statement. Historians still argue whether Norse myths evolved organically or were stitched together from rival tribal legends. If that's true, then your story has always been a Frankenstein's hammer of motifs and moods. So now you lean into it. You reforge your armor, each plate from a different realm, not matching, not symmetrical. One pauldron glows with elven frost, another burns with Muspelheim fire. Your cloak is wolf pelt stitched to starlight. The whole ensemble makes you look like a rejected concept sketch from 6 different sagas. Perfect. Because nothing makes a puppet master more nervous than a character who stops playing to type. Loki watches you emerge from the forge with a slow clap. That's either the most brilliant meta-tactic I've seen, or a desperate cry for attention. Why not both, you say. And now, the stage. You climb to the highest peak in all the realms, Nitbjörg, the mountain where Odin once sought wisdom through pain. It's a place so soaked in myth that even the air feels scripted. Lightning flickers at your fingertips. You plant your feet in the snow, raise your new weapon, a warped, defiant hybrid of hammer and spear, and let your voice echo across the 9 realms. I know you're watching. The wind stills. I don't know who you are, or why, but if this is a game, then I'm done being the piece. I'm the player now. Your voice cracks like thunder. You want a show? Here's one you didn't write. And then you do something. Truly bizarre. You sit down, cross-legged, eyes closed, meditating. You, Thor, the storm, the noise, the chaos, go perfectly still. Loki, of course, is thrilled. You've gone full performance art now. What's next? Interpretive dance? You smile without opening your eyes. They expect conflict, so I'm giving them peace. Until they get bored and throw a meteor at you. That's the gamble. Because if the watcher, whoever they are, is truly reading your myth in real time, then silence is the most disruptive thing you can do. Not battle, not vengeance, just stillness. And sure enough, something changes. The air warps, time stutters, and then it appears, not a god, not a creature, an eye, massive, sky-wide, watching without blinking. It makes no move, it just observes. You feel your heartbeat steady, even as the snow around you begins to melt from the sheer pressure of being seen. Loki whispers, "This is the moment. They're waiting for a mistake." You say nothing, then softly, "You don't own me." The eye narrows and vanishes, not defeated, just confused. You open your eyes. Somewhere in the cosmic sprawl of story, a tether just snapped, not loudly, not with drama, but enough to shift the weight. You stand slowly, not victorious, not vindicated, but unboxed. And that's enough for now. You descend from Hnitbjörg as the sun begins to smear across the horizon, like someone spilled gold on a bruise. The air feels thinner now, not lighter exactly, but less scripted, as if reality just exhaled after holding its breath for many chapters. Loki trails behind, uncharacteristically silent. You pause near a ridge and look back. He raises an eyebrow. "Well, how do you feel, O liberator of myth?" You crack your neck, like someone yanked the thread but didn't cut it. Yet, that's the truth of it. You didn't destroy the eye. You didn't slay the watcher, whoever or whatever they are. You simply reminded them, you're not a puppet. You can improvise. You can sit still in the middle of a war and confuse the universe into a stalemate. It's power, sure, but it's lonely too, because now you realize nothing will be normal again. Not Asgard, not your hammer, not even Loki's smart remarks. Something fundamental has shifted in your narrative spine. You walk back toward the Bifrost. Asgard looms ahead, distant, glimmering, a little too perfect, like someone polished it. For tourists, you arrive to an unusual silence. No heralds, no shouting Ein Hajar, just Heimdall, standing at the gate, blinking slowly. He studies your armor, your new weapon, your still-burning footprints in the golden floor, and says simply, "You've been rewritten." You nod. "I did the rewriting." Heimdall gives you a look that probably has several centuries of judgment compressed into it. But he lets you pass. In the throne room, Odin sits, hollow-eyed, aged 1,000 years more than yesterday. You feel the weight of his gaze and realize he felt the shift too. There are no pleasantries, just a quiet question. Was it worth it? You don't answer, not directly. Instead, you plant the new weapon, half hammer, half lance, into the floor. It hums, not with violence, but with intent. You say, "If they're watching, let them see this. A god who won't dance anymore, a myth that slipped the leash." And then, a surprise. Odin, father, architect, manipulator, chuckles. "Good," he says. "It's about time." You blink. "You're not mad?" He shakes his head slowly. "Thor, the gods who survive are the ones who evolve. I didn't raise you to copy me. I raised you to outgrow me." You stare. Sometimes, even the old gods can surprise you. You step outside. Asgard is still beautiful. But now you see the scaffolding behind the clouds. The illusion is cracked, but that's not a bad thing. It means it's realer now. Loki joins you, tossing a small stone into the void below. "Well, that was weird." You laugh, a real one, from deep in your chest, And then, without fanfare, without prophecy, without even a dramatic zoom out, you start walking, not toward battle, not toward fate, just forward. Because from now on, the path is yours, and the only thing more powerful than a story that's been told 1,000 times is a story that refuses to end. And now, you feel it. That slow softening at the edges of your awareness. The tail has landed. The noise has faded. Even the thunder, usually buzzing behind your temples, has decided to take a nap. You feel the weight lift from your shoulders. Not gone, not forgotten, just manageable now. Like a cape you can choose to wear rather than chain someone else, clasped on you. The sky darkens in that velvet way only dreams understand, and your breath slows with it. You feel the last echoes of the watcher's gaze dissolve into nothing. Not defeated, just irrelevant. The wind up here is colder now, but not cruel. It curls around your ankles like a drowsy cat. Somewhere, the last leaf of a myth you never meant to finish flutters gently to the ground and disappears. You've made your stand, not by shouting, but by refusing to play. And in doing so, you found something no hammer ever gave you. Peace. So you rest now, on a hill shaped by stories, under stars that don't care who wrote them, in the silence that comes when the page turns, but no one reads. You are safe here, you are still here, and you are, finally, free. So close your eyes, warrior. Let the quiet take over, and sleep.